Buddha is a normal human being, just like you and me. That's the first thing I love about him. Everyone seems to have this grand idea that Buddha was a superhuman being with superhuman powers. Although he might have attained some superhuman powers, such as enlightenment, later in his life, he started out just like you and me, a human being who at the beginning was a total novice in life, who didn't understand what this life is all about, and also had suffered greatly. But perhaps what separates him from the rest of the humanity is his ability to persistently look for a solution, no matter what it takes. Let me quote Albert Einstein here, which is hugely relevant. It's not that I'm smart, I just stay with problems longer. Doesn't that just blow your mind? The fact that you don't have to be a genius at all to understand whatever your problem is, whether it's your financial problems, your marriage, your businesses, or your depression, whatever your problem is, you can actually solve it by sticking to it as long as possible until the solution comes up. This means it doesn't require a special talent or a super high IQ to overcome any problems. Ordinary people like you and me have a chance at overcoming anything as long as we persevere until the end of the tunnel, which then leads us to the reason why I love Buddha and his lifestyle. Before we get into this, as usual, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button. Buddha will love you. What I admire most about Buddha is his courage to give up everything in order to pursue something that's been eating away at him for years. You see, I do believe that every man is dying to find a worthy cause to die for in this life. For us men, to have an honorable cause to fight for is in itself a blessing. We've certainly got the energy, the power, and the recklessness of the youth, but oftentimes the problem is not that. The main issue is, we don't even know what we should be fighting for. Nowadays, we can see a generation of lost men who lack a sense of purpose and mission in life, that they have no choice but to indulge themselves in mindless sex, eating, and destruction. And Buddha was no more extraordinary than you and me. Until he was 29, he was basically living the same mindless life as us. As a prince living in a big-ass castle, loved and protected by his father, surrounded by hundreds if not thousands of beautiful women and delicacies. Basically, he had everything a man could ever dream of. And I'm pretty sure that despite all this, Buddha was also having the same existential crisis and the same existential questions as us. Is that all there is to life? Just titillate our senses until the day we die? It wasn't until he managed to get out of the palace and away from his father, King Suddhodana's supervision, that he was able to finally see the harsh realities of life. Outside the palace, he saw what was described as the four sights: an old man, a sick person, a corpse, and an ascetic, which would then completely transform his life. The old man signifies youth is brief, and old age will soon cripple us. The sick man signifies life is full of suffering. The corpse signifies what all life must come to eventually. The ascetic showed Buddha the path of enlightenment, on which he could transcend the entire karmic cycle of life and death. Buddha's father, King Suddhodana, was obviously aggrieved that his son was allowed to see all this. Right after the birth of the young prince, the king had received a premonition from the wisest of all sages that his son basically had two choices: either to be the ruler of the world or to be a world teacher. Obviously wishing him to carry on his royal lineage, the king did what most fathers would do, brainwashing his child, trying to convince him that everything in life is beautiful and there is no suffering in life by distracting him with all kinds of pleasures. But having seen human suffering for the first time, which was a big revelation for him at the time, Buddha then realized that he had been fed a big fat lie by his own father this whole time. On one night, Buddha decided to leave the palace and his wife and his newborn son still sleeping to pursue the wandering path in search of the truth. This became Buddha's sole mission in life: to find the root cause of suffering and spread the word. Personally, the whole story of Buddha running away from the palace and his whole family, basically giving everything up, seemed to me more like an allegory than a historical fact. It feels like the stereotypical hero's journey in which, having been fed up with the material superficialities of life, he decided to go on a new adventure to find the real treasures. Anyway, the whole story perfectly illustrates to what lengths a man should go to pursue what's truly meaningful to him. Sometimes he needs to make extremely radical changes, regardless of the discomfort it may bring upon him. From living inside a castle surrounded with beautiful women and liquor and food, to suddenly living outside and begging for food, is surely as radical a change as anything can be. Would his wife and kid still consider him as family? Would he survive out in the wild? For you, it could be changing your career, or even something simpler like changing your tiny little habits. But every radical change begins with a first step that you haven't taken before. Only by changing your external environment, new ideas and new inspiration would come to you, with which an entirely new level of being would begin to take shape. If the Buddha hadn't wandered outside the palace, he wouldn't be able to see the suffering of the world, which would go on to be his main mission in life. Unless he left his whole family behind, most likely he would go back to his old materialistic lifestyle, satisfying his animalistic drives. Unless he went to the forest, I seriously doubt he would encounter the wise sages from whom he would receive great wisdom, because that's where they live, I guess. Unless you change your environment radically, most likely you would end up with the same people, the same routine, the same habits, the same everything that don't inspire you to grow as a person. Albert Einstein once mentioned that we can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. In other words, we need to outgrow our old personality with its old mental habits before we can fully transcend our problems. And the only way to do this is to stop being your old self and become someone radically new. Right now, you are a person with the problem, but not yet a person with the solution. In order to find the solution, you need to become someone with the solution. Most people are aware of procrastination. It's a deep human problem which always delays important work by various means of distraction. Now, someone who has this problem might employ the same dysfunctional habits that never get anything done. Perhaps it's a habit of failing to get a project over the line, or it could be the impulsive need to get a quick dopamine hit when you should be chasing a deadline. These behaviors are not born of some character defects or I'm just born like this. You, as the person you are right now, is a product of your environment. The reason why you are not able to wake up on time is maybe because you always forget to set your timer on, or your bed is probably just too comfy. Now, this is something that normally I wouldn't recommend. But since we're on the subject of making radical changes, if you really want to wake up early, one of the ways to do that is maybe try not to get too comfortable with your bed. Maybe try to sleep without your air conditioner on, or use the most annoying tune ever as your alarm clock. Maybe this would make waking up early so much easier for you. Who knows? To transcend your problems, you need to become the person with the solution. And oftentimes, all you need to do is to get rid of the toxic environment you are in right now, and try to mingle in new type of situations that will get you into the right mental space and will provide you with the right kind of ideas. Just like Buddha, who despite the warmth and comforts of his family, decided to fuck it all up and hang out with other monks in orange robes. Because he certainly got it, that before you can change yourself, you need to change the company you are with 95% of the time. That in order to become the person you want to be, first you need to be with those who already have what you want to have. For Buddha, it's not his family, or the palace, or his harem of concubines, but it's the beggars, and the vagabonds, and the monks, and a simple life out in nature. What's for you?